Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to be making some delicious slow cooked beef cheeks in a yummy red wine sauce. Let's get started. So in front of me, as you can see, I have some beef cheeks, about 1.5 kilograms, 3 pounds-ish, and it's about 4. So beef cheeks, if you don't know, are from the cheeks of the cow, and they cook really nicely, but you've got to cook them really slowly, otherwise they are really tough because they've got all the little bits of muscle and grain, as you can probably see through them, but this creates a lot of flavour. So these are full of flavour, and when you cook them slowly, all these little tiny muscles and bits of fat in there slowly render out, and basically the meat just falls apart, and it is so good. But before we start, there's just a couple of things that we need to prepare. So this one, as you can see, doesn't have too much fat on it, which is great. I'm just going to trim that little bit of fat off because there's enough fat inside. But there is this kind of silver skin. Now this, once it cooks, now I've done this a lot of times now, but the first time I did it, I did not remove this, and it is really chewy and you don't want to eat it. You could remove it afterwards, but it is much better to remove beforehand. So only some of them seem to have it, and if you get this from the butchers, they might remove it for you. And it's only on this side. So I'm just going to run my knife slowly under it just to remove it. So I'll just remove these little bits of fat. Alright, here we go, got this sucker off. So I'm just going to repeat this on my other 3 beef cheeks, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I've cut most of the silver skin off and the excess fat, and I'm happy. Just make sure you give it a bit of a pat down if they're really wet or, got their juices all over them. And then now I'm going to give them a really nice season, so some nice pepper and salt, and I'm going to just sear them in a hot pan. So I just want to sear them each side for a couple of minutes to get some colour. This colour, again, as everyone knows, creates a lot of flavour, and it is important for the sauce. We're not cooking it, we're just getting a nice colour on each side, just a quick high heat sear. And yeah, so to this I'm going to pop some pepper and salt on each side. Go. Alright, so from here I'm just going to pop them in my pan with a little bit of olive oil once it's heated, and then set them aside, and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so now we've got a lovely, nice sear on the beef, and it's time to get on to the veggies. So, beef's done. I've got 2 onions, 2 medium size. You could use 1 large, 2 medium, depends what you want. I've got 2 carrots. I've just got some celery from the garden that I've pulled out, and a few herbs. So there's some rosemary, thyme, bay leaves, and there's a nice bunch of garlic. So about 6 to 8-ish, whatever garlic cloves, however many you want. Now I'm just going to dice these really messily, not into little pieces, because later on all of this flavour and all these veggies and stuff are going to create the sauce and I guess the gravy, so to speak, for the beef. So it's all going to slow cook in the slow cooker, and I'm going to blend it up, probably with a stick blender. Obviously remove the beef once it's cooked, then blend up the sauce when it's done, and then maybe reduce that down. That'll create a really nice flavour. So I'm not going to worry too much about chopping it really nicely. But I am just going to saute lightly the onions and just chuck in the those veggies and that garlic, just to cook out that raw garlic flavor so it doesn't end up in my sauce later on. So yeah, just gonna chop these into a few pieces. So today I'm going to use my slow cooker to cook this, but you can feel free, I quite often actually like to just use a big pot and cook it in the oven. The slow cooker I think is great for this. It does take quite a while. I'm going to be doing it on a low to medium kind of heat, and it really will take all day doing it that slowly, but I think it really creates the nice soft beef cheeks, just in the way that the meat is, you know, so tough and it needs all that time. So in the oven it would take about 3.5-ish hours on about 150 degrees Celsius, which is about 300 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe. But on the slow cooker it will take probably at least 8 hours. So I'm going to do it on medium. Low, I'd probably end up cooking this for 12 hours at least, but I'm going to do it on medium for 8 hours. But it's something that you very much just have to play around with. So I've chopped my onion up. I'm just going to throw this in the pan just for a few minutes. I'm not going to cook it. I'm just going to cook out some of that raw bitter flavour. So I've got the onions here, and with the carrots similar, I'm just going to chop them into a few rough pieces. And celery the same. I'm just going to come along, running out of room on my chopping board. I'm just going to chop that into bits too. Alright, so yeah, I'm just going to chuck this in the same pan that I cooked the beef in, obviously at a much lower temperature, medium-low, and just saute these for a few minutes, and then we'll move on. Alright, so I've just sauteed those veggies down a little bit, as you can see. I also added about a teaspoon of chili flakes, and of course that's optional. If you like chili, add some. If you don't, just skip it. I just find it adds a little bit more to the sauce. So yeah, these are obviously not cooked, they're just a little bit soft. So from here, I'm basically just going to chuck this straight into the slow cooker. So again, if you're using a pot, or Dutch oven, put it into that. I'm going to use my slow cooker here, and I'm just going to dump it all straight in, like that. And as you can see, that onions are just a nice bit of soft. You want to get as much out of that pan as possible because that holds a lot of flavour. So that's all in. I'm just going to give my garlic a little bit of a chop. If you're not so keen on garlic, use less, or even cook it down a little bit in the onion. I love garlic, so I'm not fussed. And again, I'm just going to chop these into just rough pieces since I'll be blending the sauce. Alright, that's chopped. I'm just going to pop that into Alright, garlic's in. I've got my herbs. So I've got 3 bay leaves here, just fresh from the garden. I'll pop those straight in, obviously rinsed. I've got a nice big sprig of thyme. I'll pop that in, and some rosemary as well. So the herbs are kind of optional. I like that mix. Whatever you want to add. So that's in, and I'm going to add a cup. I've just got some packaged beef stock here. It can be chicken stock, it could just be water. These beef cheeks have a lot of flavour, so I wouldn't worry too much about trying to get too much flavour from stock, because trust me, this will pack a lot. So I'm just going to pour that straight in. And then as well, I have a bottle of red wine. So again, the red wine braised beef cheeks, this is going to be delicious. So I would add about 2 cups. I'm not going to measure, I'm just going to add probably a fair bit of the bottle. And this, by the way, is a Shiraz. There we go. So it's a Shiraz, so it has quite a rich flavour, and I would go for a richer or heavier flavoured wine. I think it just creates a lot of flavour in this slow cooked dish. So that's all in, and now the last thing, I'm going to pop these beef cheeks in. So as well, we just want to have these probably kind of pretty much almost covered by the liquid. I'll shove these in, and any remaining sauce too. So I've just given these a little bit of a mix around, chucking this all in. I might also add just the tiniest bit of water. Actually, what I do, I'm going to add a little bit of water to my pan, just pick up those little bits of extra flavour left in there and pour that on top. So I'm probably adding about 1/3 of a cup. I don't need too much more liquid in mine. That should be enough to have it almost covered. There we go. And that red wine, obviously, as it slow cooks, that'll all cook out and create a nice, really delicious flavour. And now that everything is in, I've realised that I have forgotten to add some tomato paste. You need about 2 tablespoons. I usually like to actually cook this out with the veggies because it can be a bit bitter, and it is really good to cook out before it goes in. But I'm a little bit late, so I'm just going to add it straight into this slow cooking liquid. The tomato paste basically just creates a bit of a, richer and gives more flavour to the sauce as well. It's not essential, but I think it adds a lot of nice, flavour to the dish. Alright, so now everything's added. I'm just going to pop this on to medium, and we're going to do 8 hours. So I popped it on medium for 8 hours, and I'm just going to check on how this goes. So again, if you're doing it in a pot in the oven, pop it on for about 3.5 hours on 150 degrees Celsius, I believe 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And basically you can kind of mix it part way through, but you just need to check at the end. Don't think it's done if it's still tough. It'll need longer to cook. It's done when literally you can press on it with a spoon and it falls apart. So basically that's when it's cooked. So I'm just going to pop the lid on here, leave that there, and we'll be back in 8 hours. Alright, so a little bit of time has passed. We've got about 2 hours and 20 minutes left on the beef cheeks, and they smell amazing. So I thought it'd be time to quickly run through my sides. So I'm going to start off, I've got some baby carrots in front of me. They're looking a bit messy, but I'm going to trim them up a little bit, and then I'm going to boil in my big pan, and then I'm going to create a nice kind of balsamic sweet glaze over the top. So I'll just run through that quickly. So I'm going to start by cutting the tops and cutting these little tail bottoms off the carrots. I'm going to boil these for about 5-6 minutes just to soften them a bit and remove some of those dark impurities. And then I'm going to come along, drain them, and then pop them back in the pan with about 2 tablespoons of butter and about a teaspoon of sugar. So this will caramelise and make them nice and sweet and delicious. And also, once they're cooking down a little bit, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar in, a little bit of pepper and salt, and these will create some delicious carrots. So that is, as you can see, the carrots done and looking amazing. Alright, and my second side, I would like to serve my beef cheeks with some delicious creamy mashed potato, a nice garlicky mash. And to do this, I'm just going to boil up some potatoes, and going to boil these for about 10 minutes. I'm going to cut them into all similar sizes, obviously peeled, and from there I'm going to drain and set some butter. So again, probably about 2 or 3 tablespoons of butter with a little bit of finely chopped or minced garlic, about just 2 cloves or so. I'm just going to gently cook this off. I don't want to brown the garlic, but just kind of cook it a bit. Add some pepper and salt, and then once my potatoes are ready, I'm going to mash them and pour this butter in with a little bit of milk. I'm just going to mash them and mix this around until it creates a delicious, fluffy, garlic-infused mashed potato. Alright, back to the beef cheeks. Alright, so our 8 hours has now passed. It smells amazing and it looks fantastic as well. So I'm going to pop this lid off, and I'm going to gently take out the beef cheeks. So they're really soft, they're well cooked, and you've got to be careful. I'm also going to take out my 3 bay leaves and any leftover stems of the rosemary and the thyme, because I will blend up the sauce. Alright, so here we go. I've taken the beef out and I've taken the herbs out. I'm left with this really nice sauce that I'm going to blitz up using my stick or immersion blender. I'm just going to turn it into a nice, that kind of creamy sauce that, you know, incorporates the lovely carrot, the onion, the garlic, the celery, and all obviously these delicious flavors from the beef. So as you can see, this is actually perfectly cooked. I was expecting it might take me a bit longer, but as you can see, some of these actually fell apart when I was taking them out. And the way you know that they're ready is this one that's falling apart. You can push down on it and it literally falls apart and just melts into nothing. That's exactly how the beef cheek should be. So I'm just going to give this a quick blend. Alright, so now they're at the stage, I've blended this sauce and it's lovely and rich, and the beef is separate. Now, it's time to give it a bit of a taste. It's very important to taste, you know, for salt levels or sweetness. And it is really nice, but I am going to add about a teaspoon of sugar, just to sweeten it up a little bit. And I'm going to add a little bit more salt. Because remembering, well, I only added salt at the start when I was just cooking down the onions a little bit, so I think it needs a bit more salt. But it's very important to taste yourself, so that you can add in what you want and what you think you would like. So I'm going to give this a mix, and I've just popped this back on high for a minute just to kind of keep cooking things out, maybe reduce it down a little bit. And you know, if you want to do it in a hurry, just pop some in a pot and reduce that down as well. Either way, I'm not in a rush, so I'm just going to keep it in here. And again, let's give it a try. I think that's much better. So as I said, yeah, important to remember to adjust to the taste. So from here, we're pretty much done. I'm just going to plate it up, and as you saw, I prepared some delicious carrots and some mashed potato. Just nice and simple. You can pair it with whatever you would like to pair it with. I think this looks good, it tastes good. And yeah, so basically I'm going to get on to plating, and I'm just going to pop a nice piece of beef that hasn't fallen apart on top of some mashed potato and a few carrots. So yeah. Alright, so I've popped a little bit of mashed potato, a few carrots, and a nice chunk of the beef cheek on here. I'm just going to ladle a little bit of that delicious sauce on top. Alright, so here we go. It may not look incredible, but it sure tastes incredible. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you really enjoyed this video. It was, you know, a lot of fun. Beef cheeks are sure delicious. They take a while to cook, but you just put them in the slow cooker or the oven and kind of forget about it, and then they'll be done in the evening. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.